I think we can start.
Yeah. Good evening, namaste, and welcome to the 23rd edition of Guru Manthan 2020. And wish all of you a very happy and prosperous new year as we set out in our series in 2021 as well. So, this is a series of 50 discussions with educationists and thinkers every Saturday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. The Guru Manthan talks are being organized under the aegis of the Vivekananda Institute for Leadership Development, We Lead. We Lead is an initiative of SVYM, and We Lead's mission is to develop human and social capital for nation building. And this We Lead aims to do through building the potential and enhancing the potential of individuals and institutions across the development sector. This We Lead does through its engagement across four sectors: the government, NGOs, corporates, and the community, with specific focus on the youth. And Guru Manthan is one such initiative where we've created a platform for teachers, particularly during the period where they can share, discuss, debate, and learn about diverse perspectives and practices in education from across the world. And over the last several months, we've had the who's who from India's public sphere share their thoughts with us. We started with Dr. Gururaj Karjagi, followed by Professor Sridhar, the former election commissioner, chief election commissioner, Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy. We also had Dr. Kasturi Rangan on Teachers' Day. We've had Professor Annamalai, Dr. Ananta, Professor M.S. Giridhar, and a whole host of people. Last week we looked at an approach towards this one, and last week we had talked about the how do we define learning outcomes, the crucial first step in teachers' education. So, as always, quickly let me summarize. The format of the talk would be as follows: the guest speaker would speak for about 20 to 25 minutes. This will be followed by a moderated Q&A, which will be moderated by myself and Praveen. And we would also be picking up questions from the chat box as well as some of our own questions. And it is my pleasure to welcome and introduce the distinguished speaker for today, Professor Dr. Priya Vaidya, who will be talking about a very interesting and, in one sense, very intriguing topic, education for exploration. Dr. Priya Vaidya works as Associate Professor, Department of Philosophy, University of Mumbai, and is also a visiting faculty at the Chanakya Institute of Public Leadership. It's a privilege to have you as our guest speaker today, Dr. Vaidya, and I would like to hand over the session to you. Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you very much for a very, very generous introduction. I express my deep gratitude to the Lord for this lovely opportunity, which is given to me to share my thoughts. Thank you to Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement, Dr. Balsubramaniam ji, and this entire team. My best wishes to this entire team for lovely initiatives in the future. My greetings and gratitude to everybody who's here attending this session for your sharing your valuable time. And Manthan, I feel it's a very, very rich initiative of sharing, learning, and moving together. So once again, congratulations to the organizers for this wonderful initiative. When I am going to share my thoughts I share as a teacher. Education for exploration, Swami Vivekananda's thoughts on education. When I look back and when I see myself and analyze myself as a teacher, I think the most important and outstanding moment of my life was when I studied Swami Vivekananda's thoughts as a student, as a researcher, and when I had this opportunity to explore these thoughts when I became a teacher. And so today I'm very happy that amongst the audience are my own brothers and sisters who are also teachers. Parents are also teachers in that sense, and we all are teachers in some way or the other to someone and also to ourselves. And in that sense, I just have few points to share. Uh, Most important point is when we try to look at the word teacher. A teacher is not just a teacher, but a teacher is something more. And when we look at Vivekananda's approach and philosophy, we're going to look at this dimension of a teacher. So I'm going to move ahead with each letter in the word teacher and look at Swamiji's philosophy, look at its dimensions in this life, and in what way can we explore these aspects of good life. Exploration is a very interesting word because it keeps us engaged 24 by 7. And with that dimension, I look at the first letter from the word teacher is the letter T. A teacher is also a thinker. And as Swami Vivekananda said, that each soul is potentially divine. So when we look at the teacher is a thinker in that sense, where the teacher, when enters the classroom, goes with the particular lesson plan, is ready to move ahead to complete the syllabus. But when he enters the class or she enters the class, it is a field where there is a lot of possibility of this thinker to evolve. It may be managing a very, very naughty child. It may be looking at a child who's really not interested in learning. It may be a child who is over enthusiastic to learn something. And it may be a child who wants to know something more. So, in that sense, each one of you who's a teacher, you don't just teach, but in this process of entering the class, you also are a thinker because there are many conflict situations which arise. And these are not assumed conflicts. These are sometimes or most of the times unassumed conflicts. And when you know that, as Swamiji says, each soul is potentially divine, for teachers, we all have experienced this, that the more we travel inside, the more divinity we are able to understand to resolve a conflict or to appreciate a child's understanding about the particular subject or particular aspect of life. And in that sense, the thinker is engaged. And that's why although I belong to this profession, but I also salute to all those teachers who play a very important role as a thinker, because they are always striving to give something meaningful, and also in that process trying to focus on the potentiality which is within. And also when they are trying to be in a classroom, they try to have this perception that each soul is potentially divine. Each child is a very, very important unit of the entire process. And so teachers do not just remain teachers, but they also become thinkers, and a deep thinker becomes a facilitator. There is no imposition. There is always a space to explore that understanding and to develop that rapport between a student and a teacher. So I feel that this dimension of being a thinker is a very, very important dimension. And this is very special to whosoever is a teacher, because the teacher does not just come and go. The teacher comes with a lesson plan, but has something very different at times, and leaves the class with many thought processes, leaves with something more interesting for the next class, and perhaps also something necessary to nurture good life. So in that sense, Swamiji's each soul is potentially divine is, as according to me as a teacher, is the most inspiring dimension of a teacher's uh, looking within, understanding, and growing up. When we look at the word E, the teacher is not just a teacher who teaches, but is also an expert in one's own subject, and he or she also has very interesting understanding about the subject. But apart from this, the teacher also tries to know beyond the subject that knowing is explored. And here, according to Swami Vivekananda, this expertise is not just knowing the subject, but connecting. And according to me, according to Swami Vivekananda, love plays a very important role in this process of sharing, learning, and taking students beyond the information towards transformation. And that's why this abundance of love is something very important. And that's why it is said that the mother is the first teacher of the child, and the teacher is the second mother of the child. So, in that sense, each class, each classroom, wherever one is a class teacher or a head or in charge, that is one's family. And if every teacher had this approach that these are my children, and when that abundance of love is shared, I think love has that capacity, as Swamiji rightly states, it has all that capacity to take you beyond any difficulty. And that's why I personally want to share that in my 23 years, 24 years of teaching career, I uh, I don't want to boast, but I don't recollect getting angry with my students or trying to shout at them. I always used to feel that how can I practice love and resolve a conflict? And I think I was successful most of the times. And I want to give the credit to my students only because they gave me this opportunity to emerge as a better person. Because at that age, children will make mischief. They will not be, as they are supposed to be in some ways. And that's why teachers are required. So, in that sense, this journey of loving and enhancing that learning, I have enjoyed. And I am very happy to share this, that this is a very important lesson which I learned from Swamiji's thoughts. And I want to say, I'm sure in the audience there are teachers, parents who know this already. But in case we sometimes forget some important things, so I'm just trying to say that keep loving. Maybe each one of us may not be an expert in that sense, but love is something which is beyond any expertise. Love is something which is within, and it is in abundance in each one of us. And always remember that whatever we have become today, wherever we have reached, some people, some who loved us, made this journey possible. And now it is your turn to take it forward. Moving from the E part, I'm moving to the A part, that is achiever. I always feel that the teacher is an achiever. Achiever to develop sensitivity, because a teacher is not a god. Teacher is not somebody who knows everything. Teacher is one, as I said, has that abundance love capacity. So the teacher is also one who is trying to practice that sensitivity, achiever in knowledge, achiever in opportunity to reach out. So when you accept every challenge, each lesson becomes very interesting. And that's why I always, whenever there were some tough moments as a teacher, like for example, how to teach this topic, how to make it interesting, how should I see the smile on my face, and what will be the class like, they should wait for the lecture, that should be the focus. And I was always inspired by Swami Vivekananda's thought that weak you think, weaker you will be, and strong you think, stronger you will be. And that's why I always feel that for a teacher, the teacher is already an achiever because you have chosen this field of teaching. You had another choice. You perhaps would have taken some other profession. But when you decided to be a teacher, that was your achievement number one. And as you keep going to your educational institutes, coming back, and the joy and the smile which you have, and when you inspire the students, I think that achievement is something which is beyond words. You know, the joy which you get when you see that there are so many who get inspired because of you, you feel very responsible. And I think that when we think strong, we also share that with students. When we are happy in the classroom, it spreads. And that's why I always feel classroom is a place where this field of formation of good thought, strong will takes place. We move from the TEA to C. Every teacher is, I feel, a charismatic communicator. How is that? Uh, you talk to yourself. For example, oh, today I have this lecture, I have to go here, I have to do this. So you talk to yourself, I will do this lesson, I will give a test. So there is some talking. Oh, they have to submit their assignment. Then you talk to children. You talk to the authority. You have a communication with the principal or other teachers. You talk to parents. And the most important thing, to the believers, you also talk to the Lord. And this talking to the Lord is where there is absolute gratitude, or when difficulties come, there is a total surrender. Swamiji's Bhakti Yoga, he speaks about the triangle of love. And it's a fantastic dimension. When I look at teachers and education, I feel this very relevant. The one side of this angle is that love knows no bargain. There is no bargain. So when you have this love, I have already said that, then it is just giving. You're a giver. Love knows no fear. So here we are trying to say that there is no fear. When you are a teacher, there are going to be difficult moments, but do it fearlessly, whatever you have as a virtue to be shared. And the third angle is to focus on the ideal, the truth. And so when a teacher moves in the class, you learn to surrender your ego. And the minute you surrender your ego, the minute you feel I am not somebody who has, you know, I am, my challenge is to help them. My challenge is to understand them. My challenge is to inspire them. So there is a kind of a surrender of ego. And when this surrender of ego takes place, my experience is the communication opens. Then there is even students don't fear. How should I talk? How should I ask? So there is some kind of a concern, and I feel that's most important. Uh, I asked once a great scholar. I met a great scholar, Dr. Maheshwari ji at Sri Aurobindo Ashram when I was doing my PhD. So I had asked him a question, sir. According to you, who is a great teacher? And he gave a very interesting reply. He said, a teacher is one, for example, when you're going to a college and teaching, or to a school, and one day or 2 days when you don't go to the school or college, and when your students are not happy but they are concerned, when you go on the third day, they ask you, what was the problem? Why did you not come? Whenever you get this kind of a concern, sharing, he said, pat on your shoulder and say to yourself, you're on the right track. When children are happy when you're not going to the class, that means there's a lot of homework you have to do. And so I'm moving to the H part of it, that is teacher is a helper. And in that sense, from the Karma Yoga dimension, Swamiji says unselfishness is more paying. Only people do not have that patience to practice it. It is more paying also from the point of view of health. So, in love, truth, that unselfishness, there's a manifestation of power. So, have faith and try to give that, share that faith with others. And that's why be a helper, but be a helper without the burden which you are perhaps we may sometimes impose, that look, I am helping you. No, as a facilitator, you have to help in such a way as nature helps us every moment. There is nobody, we do not get a SMS from sun that look, I give you light every day. We receive it in abundance. So helping means the concern. Helping means I empathize. Helping means I am capable to understand what the other is trying to feel. And when this, a teacher has a lot of this scope, not only in the classroom. When you connect with the student, you connect with the life of the child. And in that sense, that scope of helping is tremendous. And what Swamiji says is very, very important. Whenever you help others, says very nicely, the world is not waiting. The world is not waiting for your help. But then why should you continue to help? Because when you help somebody, you elevate. And that's why let us be very, very grateful to every child who gives that opportunity to help. Because in that, we will also elevate. And in that sense, let us be a helper. When we look at the E part of it, energizer, uh, when we look at the dimension of the aspect of energizer, one who imparts energy and vitality, and the practice of Raja Yoga is very, very necessary for every teacher. Doing yogasana, practice of pranayama, focus on sattvic diet, focus on calmness, focus on performing something in a very selfless way. Swamiji says, the man who has practiced control over himself cannot be acted by anything outside. There won't be any slavery, and his or her mind will become free. And that's why we all have this abundance energy. If we shout in a class, if we keep getting angry, if we also become vindictive, if we are lazy, if we are always waiting, what will I get out of it? Then we are, I think, wasting energy. The more we practice, and that's why yoga, not just doing yogasana 24/7. If a teacher practices yoga, I think that would be very, very interesting, because when you practice, most of you, I'm sure, must be practicing this, that whenever you practice yoga, your focus in life becomes more refined. Your possibility of getting angry gets reduced. Your humility increases. Your creativity, it becomes limitless, and so on and so forth. And for that, you have to invest half an hour. And throughout the day, you have to keep checking your mind screen, not your message screen on the phone. Every half an hour, where is this going? What is that impression on my mind? And can I delete something which is negative? And can I be more positive? From the E, we move to the R, and the last part of it, the researcher. A teacher is also a researcher. Many teachers say, I have not done MPhil, I have not done PhD, I have not done a project. Life for you itself is a big project, and every teacher, I feel, is a researcher. In what way? You start looking at yourself in a very objective way. Today, when you just look at yourself and ask this question, how do you rate yourself as a teacher? How many students were happy when you were teaching in a class? How many students came to you and said, wow, this was great, or I have a doubt, or I have a problem, or which book should I read, or when is your next class? I want to prepare and come. So, so here Swamiji says, learn to see God in man. Worship the living God. You are strong. Do not stagnate. Do not dominate. There are two kinds of silence in a class when a teacher enters. First kind of silence is because of fear. The minute the teacher goes and looks here and there, everybody is quiet. And there are some teachers who say, look at my power. The minute I enter, they are all quiet. But that is because of fear most of the times. Second dimension of the silence is when you are in the class and with due respect and gratitude, the silence comes, it emerges. When you're teaching something and you're so involved that that particular dimension of silence is very, very different. It is elevating. There's a connect with the person who receives and the person who gives, and there is a kind of a turiya avastha. And I think every teacher has to research, and every day in your logbook, you have to keep growing. You have to understand that this dimension of research, and I also want that educational institutes should become research institutes also. Teachers should sit in the staff room and share about the development of the child, because each child is known to every teacher, and to understand that yes, this batch has this potential, let us focus on this. And I think each teacher has that lovely potential to build a very different India, and you can make a change in their life. And there's a nice story with which I end what I want to say, and I'm sure you know this story. There was a child who was looking at the waves, standing by the sea, and with every wave, there were some fishes which were coming to the shore. And the child was picking those fishes and putting again in the sea. There was a very elderly man who looked at the child and said, my dear child, what are you doing? What are you going to get out of it? What are you going to change? What difference will it make to you? And what did the child say? He said, grandfather, maybe it won't make any change to me, but it will definitely make a change to every fish, because I'm giving a different dimension of life. We have senior teachers, we have young teachers who have just joined so many years. What is the difference? This batch goes, another batch comes. Each child is a different child. Each child has that potential to be a very, very different aspect of this life. And that's why my salute to all teachers. We are in a very, very special profession, and I wish my best wishes to each one of you. Not that I'm going to conclude now. Now the question answers will start, and that's why I'm very eager to receive questions. And I also want to share that I don't claim to give final answers. I also don't claim to say I am a scholar in XYZ subject. No, I'm just a very, very ordinary person. And I want to share whatever little I understood from life. And I would be grateful to receive your questions, your suggestions. And I also want to ask the organizers if I'm done with my 25 minutes, and if that's fine, I will move ahead and would love to receive questions. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Priya. I think it was a wonderful talk. I think the story that you said at the last, I think about making a difference. I think what you spoke today I'm sure will make a difference to all the participants who are here as well. I think all of them have something to take home. I would like to start with a question that is something that when we talk about personalities like Swami Vivekananda or even Sri Aurobindo or the mother who also extensively wrote about education and other people. Uh, we see that most of them were kind of forces of nature, manifestations of something that was beyond this material world in that sense. So not many of us are gifted in the sense that we do not bring with us the kind of natural force that they came with, the vibhutis that they were endowed with. So I wanted to know from you, what is it that you do to ensure that you can get some of what they did into practice, and how do you think we can, work on those aspects of in our own limited way? How can we work on that?
It's a very, very interesting question, sir. Thank you for it. And the first important thing is, I always feel each one of us has that abundance energy, but we are not aware about it. And so we have to awaken it. We are, because of the worldly engagements, our energy is dissipated. And that's the reason, what I feel is, what I do is, every morning when my day starts, I always thank the Lord that this day is also a big gift to me. And I also try to seek blessings that may this day be happy for me and for others also. And I decide that if I have three things which I can do, you know, what will be the best? How can I be excellent in that? I also try to see that each particular moment is a opportunity to know the divine arrangement. It's like, it's not, oh my God, now what to do? What is the purpose? Why is this coming to my life? How should I look at it? How should I resolve? And I try to do it in my way. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I may not be successful. At the end of the day, when it closes, I also share my gratitude, and I also look at the everyday, where I try to perform in what way and how perhaps the next day can be better than today. So I try to do that, and I found that the more you are calm, the more you are focused, and the less you are impulsive, the more you are hardworking. There are two kinds of people in this world: hardworking and hardly working. So the minute you're sincere, as Vivekananda says, perseverance, sincerity, the minute you're sincere with whatever work you are assigned, and with life in total, if you're more disciplined, then I think there is nothing to worry, and you will emerge as a better person every day. So I think, keep life very simple, easy, and surrender everything at the Lord's feet, and do your best. Whatever is given, don't grumble, don't complain. Do it with a lot of gratitude, that at least we have something to work. We have a very good body, mind, everything. So there must be a fantastic arrangement why we are chosen for this work.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll just do a follow-up question on that, and then hand it over to Praveen for some questions. Most of be it Sri Aurobindo or be it Swami Vivekananda and all of them, and their thoughts on education, other thing, or for example, the many of their most of their thinking is now looked upon as as simply as outliers. They're not compatible within the framework of the education system that we have in place right now. In the sense, they have their own, the be it the J. Krishnamurti Foundation or the Aurobindo. They are, these are like exclusive schools where only a few people can go to. I'll just club two questions. Is there some commonalities in the integral yoga approach of Aurobindo as well as Swami Vivekananda's views in education that you see? And also, do you think these could be mainstreamed at any time at all?
Yes. I see a lot of similarity between the two thinkers, and they are trying to focus on the process of awakening and awareness. So their focus is to develop awareness, which will be followed by deeper awakening. My second important thing is it is not possible to change the system altogether, because it will be taking so many years and centuries maybe. I always feel every educational institution can reflect on a plan where each educational institute has that space to make some changes, okay, in the everyday aspect of it, and to see that how the integration of values can be focused, how a more disciplined path can be focused. And I personally feel that there is a need to explore these aspects in a more deeper way, and to also communicate and consider teachers as very important dimensions, and also involve students, take some meetings, ask the teachers and students to sit together and develop and chalk out a plan. I think that plan will work best, which comes from within, when the teachers and the students sit together. And let us not make it very heavy with jargons which put us off in that sense. Let us not also think about the future. Let us think about today first. Let us think about the next 5 years. Let us try to look at a very realistic picture. For example, the current problem, for example, is the use of mobile phones is increasing by the day. And how do we help children to be better readers? They can read good books. So how can we have a good way of cultivating hobbies? Now, if we ask children only to give us solutions, children are the best teachers in many ways. So I always feel that the point is to have a program to bring forward this awareness and awakening through the students and teachers. And most important plan which I would like to say is I had developed a concept called as when we look at the aspect of environment, I had developed a concept of environment mentoring, involve students and teachers in such projects which help our environment to be a better place. So I always feel that if we try to help students to develop themselves through different activities, then it makes more sense than telling them something more abstract. So such activities, or improving one's own educational institutions, so giving them that responsibility, that how can your institution become an institution of excellence? Let's have a meeting on it. And also not just taking ideas, but keep making students responsible in team building, in executing the plan, and in making them responsible that yes, you are the most important part of this nation. And how can we make them more responsible family members? I think if we give them responsibility, sometimes I also feel elders do not give this responsibility, or they generalize. They say, oh, this young generation doesn't, do this, do that, and they have many complaints. But with love, everything can be resolved. We were also young, we were also children. So let us also give them that, that space to be what they are.
Thank you, ma'am. And you did mention about generalizing, and then there is a very interesting question in the chat box on that. You teach a slightly different age group when compared to many of the participants here. So,
Yes.
how do you think that dynamics of a relationship between a teacher and the student kind of changes? And have you had any interesting experiences on that part?
Uh, Although I teach slightly different age group, but I have a connect with school teachers. I have friends also who teach in schools, and I always tell that I sometimes also want to teach the KG class. That's one of my dream, and I always feel there's a big challenge when teachers are with younger students. How to develop that kind of a relationship which I have been talking, because these are children. In fact, I think that the task is much easier, you know, because as we grow, we start becoming more calculative. We are in a, I should not use this word, but we also become very manipulative in transaction of emotions. But the more younger we are, the more innocence is there, the more the capacity of love is there. And I feel that this is something which teachers who teach at those kinds of students, they definitely have this kind of experience, that they can develop that kind of a relationship. And sometimes parents also say that हमारा नहीं सुनते लेकिन आपका सुनते हैं, you know. Now that is, I think, a big certificate, because the teacher does it also in a very different way. So I feel that every teacher has a very important role to play. And this also a question may come, that we have big classrooms, we have a student strength of 100, and what are you trying to say, that love them? I feel that a number is just a number, if one wants to do it, one can definitely do it. Your 40 minutes going to a class can, that's kind of a magic. And for that you have to plan, for that you have to study, for that you have to be very, very dedicated. And you can make a board, you can make I know so many teachers who do so many things, and I'm sure there are my sisters and brothers who do wonderful things and make the class more happy. So it is possible. Only thing is whether we have that will, and with that will, anything is possible.
A couple of very practical challenges which have come up in the chat box, which I would kind of club them together. A modern day teacher in a school is kind of saddled with the burden of completing the syllabus, or you have all types of students in the class, kids who do extremely well, kids who take some time to cope up, and things like that. So, and I'm sure you also face the same thing in your class. So, any tips or any thoughts on that?
Yes, completion of the syllabus is one important thing which we teachers are always, we have that on our mind screen. And then how do we do all the other activities which are there? Plus, how do we manage students? I explored some ways by focusing on integrating whatever I'm teaching, developing teaching methods that are integrated with values. So if you're teaching mathematics also, and the syllabus completion is not just going to be a tick. There is a purpose why you are given that. Okay. So maybe, you look at the syllabus, step one, look at in how better way you can do innovation, and how the time with you thought maybe taking 3 hours, and then it is trying to just attack your time plan. How can you do it in a very effective way? And for that, teachers have to think out of the box. They have to think out of the box, and with whatever available material you have, maybe newspaper. I have developed some games based on the newspaper, or you have so many things which are available easily at home, like the pen, small things. And when you are explaining a concept, you need not always make it heavy, make it light. so that the next time the child looks at the pen, the child will recollect that which you had explained in context to the pen. So my point here is syllabus completion should not be, oh, I have to complete the syllabus and how will I do it? Be happy, oh wow, I have this and this is a challenge in 3 lectures. I have to complete this. Let me see how I can do. And today students, and as I said, teachers have to be facilitators. Everything you don't have to teach. Today's children are very, they are advanced thinkers. They watch YouTube. So give them that work before they come to your class. You must announce that tomorrow I am going to teach this, and find out good videos, or 1 week you make a lesson plan and they will come up with something and ask me good questions and get ready for those questions. That is a very important thing, and teachers will love this. If they are doing this, they know it. If they're not doing it, they can try this, I think.
Thank you, ma'am. Just wanted to ask you a slightly personal question. How did you come to, what was it that brought you into the, into getting to read about or research about, and also, almost model your life around the teachings of Swami Vivekananda and Sri Aurobindo? What was it that brought you into this one?
Uh, it's a very interesting question, and I must express my gratitude to my teacher. When I was in class 11, uh, I was not much. I used to not read books. I used to love to play in school. Also, I loved playing more than studying, and so I always thought that children are not given more importance when they play. They should be. So I was more fond of cycling and all that. So when I went to class 11, and then when I selected philosophy as a subject, and when once my teacher spoke about Vivekananda, I just liked the thought. And when he gave me a book and said, why don't you read this? And I looked at him back and I said, I don't read books. So he said, doesn't matter. You keep this for 3 months and then you give it back. It's okay if you don't read also. And I felt, how can that be? When a teacher is given a book, I should read it. And he must have thought about it. And so, with due respect to my teacher, I started reading the book. And you perhaps very well, all of us know that Vivekananda's thoughts when you're young and when you're reading, there is something which inspires. The dimension was so strong that I didn't feel like keeping the book down. And within 10 days, I was able to complete a book, and I gave it back to him and I said, thank you very much. And he smiled and said, how was the book? So I said, it was very inspiring. And then he asked me what inspired. Then what happened? The reading, he said, now you must read more books. And as you know, Advaita Ashram books, 5 rupees, 7 rupees, it tried to fit my pocket money. And I thought I should not waste this money. And every week I started buying one book, Vivekananda's one book. And from the shop to my home, when I used to come by bus, I would complete reading it once, reaching home second time, going to college third time, 7 days reading it. And that's how I developed a library. And that's how, I started understanding the essence of Swamiji's life. And I felt that I should read more of Swami Vivekananda's work. And then I decided to do my PhD, where my guide, Professor Dr. Shubhada Joshi, she guided me. She said, you must reflect on Swami Vivekananda's thoughts and also Sri Aurobindo's thoughts. So I studied during my MA Sri Aurobindo's thought. Then I had this opportunity to go to Sri Aurobindo Ashram. So my PhD thesis focuses on Swami Vivekananda and Sri Aurobindo's thoughts on education. And let me tell you that it was not just a theoretical study. It has personally benefited me as a teacher. After studying, Swami Vivekananda and Sri Aurobindo's thoughts, I think I got some different dimensions to be a more humane teacher. So I owe them that forever.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Ma'am, there's also one more question which we had thought of. It did come up in the chat box as well, and you had also mentioned about preparation being a key to having a great classroom. Uh, Over the 3 or 4 conversations I have had with you, I kind of got a hint of how much effort goes into your preparation for this 25-minute lecture. And you would have spoken about this for quite a good number of times, but I think our preparation is the respect that we show towards our children, the attendees in the classroom. So usually we have this question of how do we prepare?
Mm.
Is it the textbook that we have to prepare for, or is it the questions that we have to prepare for? How do we prepare for a class, or how do we prepare for a lecture like this?
Yeah. Uh, Preparing for lectures when you have a syllabus. There are many teachers who get tempted ki if the syllabus is for 3-4 years, once I make the notes, then I will use the same because my preparation is over. Uh, I think it is like cooking in 2011 and eating it till 2015, which is not going to be good for health. And that's why I avoided even looking at my running notes or whatever I prepared. I till date I don't look at my notes, the earlier ones. I just forget. I just just remove it and I start afresh. And when I'm preparing, I try to look at my first. I look at my subject knowledge. I study as if I'm reading it for the first time. But although I'm not studying for the first time, the reading is little rapid, but some concepts I may have forgotten. And if I'm not over smart, then I also go back and say, yeah, I may have forgotten. So I make a list of difficult words, difficult concepts. I do that. And first part of the study is the subject concepts, and I make there is a mapping which I do, that this is what is the syllabus, this is what is the topic, this is what is the time. And whenever I do the conceptual studies ready, then I now I look at it. If I'm a student in the class and if I'm attending a lecture, how should the lecture be? From the student's point of view, I imagine myself sitting and listening to a lecture. And where is that lecture going to be boring? Where the questions will come? How will it interest? And then let me tell you, the content is there, but how you present it becomes more meaningful and a very, very interesting exercise. And the third thing is, you have to also time it. Some teachers say syllabus hota nahi hai, time kam hota hai. So you have to time it. For example, it is human tendency, and that if we get time to talk, we talk because it is ego boosting, no? So we should also see that whether whatever we talk is really necessary, how much are we supposed to talk, and how much time will it take for focusing on these points. So you have to keep the points with you, and in 30 minutes this should be over. So 5 minutes, 7 minutes for attendance, 5 minutes for questions. You have to follow this. And what I did was, I tell you, when I used to teach big classes of 100, 120, I would tell my students that when it is say 7:45 or 8:30, tell me it is 8:30. I would give this task to my students because while teaching, I would perhaps get into the mode of, and then I would know that yes, now the time is up. Now I have to go for attendance. Now I have to do this. So there is nothing wrong where if you take the class into confidence and make the lecture more meaningful with each one's contribution. So point is, there also can be a layer of pride. which teachers have to take a lot of care. Oh, I know everything, so I don't have to prepare. No. If you have referred to one book last time, please do reference. Don't just go by the textbook. The textbook is interesting. Hats off to those who developed it. But you have so much of content today all over, and we not the Wikipedia reference. You have to go to research papers. You have to look at journals. And if you ask me, sixth standard, eighth standard, what reference papers? What are you saying? No. If you really want to get that joy, you have to go to the dimension of what is written, what is, because you have a domain area, right? And you have studied and you have developed. So taking it to the class in the most interesting way, when you prepare and go to a class, the kind of happiness you feel, it's amazing. You feel it's like a sadhana, it's like a sadhana. And the more you speak, the more you have the capacity to inspire. If you don't go prepared, the lower mind starts dominating. Then there is a lot of besides the point discussion which takes place, because the lower mind is likes to go travel like this. Then there is a lot of anger, there is a lot of energy which is used for other things which perhaps could have been avoided. So you have to imagine that my 40 minutes are going to be like this. Sometimes you may not be successful also. And you must also make it a point to make children laugh, make them happy, make them curious. I always feel that the teacher should imagine that these 50 minutes should be full of joy. And that is what the teacher can do. And if the teachers say, yes, we know it, but we don't have time. I know life is tough. They also have something to manage at home. Everybody of us has some other things. But I must tell, this will give immense joy to every teacher. And you must share with each other. Teachers should have groups of sharing. How do you do it? Innovation. There should be weekly discussions. What was so different in your class? And also students should speak and give their feedback in a very wonderful way. Receive the feedback with no ego. And I think that is the secret. And I am grateful to my teachers. I had wonderful teachers. And whenever I listen to my teachers, every time I listen to my teachers, I said, I must become like them. I want to become. I Students should wait for my lecture as I wait for their lecture. I think that is what a good teacher means, and I feel never my teachers discouraged me or said, "What have you written?" No, I always the questions were encouraged, and I think a good teacher has the potential to develop a very good citizen also. That is very, very important. And I always feel every teacher has that potential. Everybody can do it. I really feel it. And I'm not just saying that I will be perceived as a very good speaker or something. No, I really feel that only there is no guidance which is given. There is nobody to orient the teachers, or there are less opportunities. And so I think teachers don't perform the way they are expected, or sometimes there are some life experiences which are bitter. Teachers are also not sometimes understood in the proper way. Teachers may have good intentions, but they are not able to communicate. Sometimes the teacher is not able to manage the classroom because the children are very, very naughty. At that time, mentoring will play a very important role. I have also developed mentoring programs for different educational institutions. Senior teachers also should help the teachers who have just joined. And if there are problems if teachers are facing, I think these also should be discussed on weekly basis. And that also can play a very, very important role. Whenever I conduct workshops for teachers, I have developed a game for teachers where there are closer to life cases where teachers resolve this in a group. And when they share it, it is a process of philosophizing, you know, and that plays a very, very important role. So sharing, whether teachers share the good and the bad, whatever they feel, and whether there is somebody to listen to them. Because like the mother in the house, sometimes the mother in the house is taken for granted. So sometimes teachers are also taken for granted. The goodness is sometimes not noticed, but the faults are pointed. This should not be this.
Thank you, ma'am. One last question, and then we'll move to your closing remarks. You did mention about reading and referencing, picking up new stuff every week. We are usually pressed for time, and sometimes I think we do become hypocritical when we say that we every one of us should read, and we keep telling the students also. Uh, how do you manage to pull out time to read more or beyond the study material or the textbooks that we use?
Okay. I believe in 5 pages every day reading. When I was doing my research, also apart from my research contents, whatever I read, I used to read something different from literature. 5 pages, and I think the 5 pages thing works well. So you try to make a list of books, and then maybe one book every month also, and see, take a I remember I did this experiment with my students. I took one class and I told them they have to read one book in a month, and they have to submit a report. So when I went to the library, college library, the next day, when I was earlier teaching in a college, the librarian asked me a question: have you given some work to the students, some reading thing? I said yes, and she looked very disturbed. So I said, did the students create any problem? She said, no, no, not really, but each one wanted the tiniest book in the library. Because see how they find a way, no? So I said, please find and give them, because for me even reading one book was my task. And when they shared their feedback, they did not share the number of pages, okay, but I knew the number of pages. So point is, yes, it is a tough thing, it is not a very easy thing to cultivate, but you make the simple step is to make a reader's list, what books I'm going to read, and don't have a very ambitious plan that I will read so much. Maybe you read one or two books, or when it comes to reference for your lectures, you have to be very precise in this work also. So choose those reference research papers and the books and reflect on it. It is possible. Wake up early, schedule your day, do delete the unwanted activities, and 24 by 7, uh, it is possible to read books if you feel you find time. You have to find time for it, and it is possible once you get that crux of it, no, you will find time. The most successful people start their day at 4:30. They complete sending emails by 5:30. They read a book every month, two books at least. So that is the secret.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. I think this was wonderful, the talk as well as the Q&A session.
Thank you so
We
much.
could now, yeah, we could now go to your closing remarks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh, it was wonderful experience sharing my thoughts. And if I have said something which was not really required, I apologize for that. I do not want to also say that, look, I did this, I did that. It was not I story. It was just sharing, and it was just exploring that aspect of my being a teacher. I personally feel that although educational institutes are spread all over the world, very few times effort is taken to develop a literature on teachers' experiences in learning and teaching and evaluation. There is a need to develop an archive of such experiences. We have so many senior teachers all over the world. Also take their help so that we will not go again every time to square one and waste more years, because the loss is done when years are lost. So the senior teachers, educationists, great people all over the world, I think educational institutes and organizations like your own should reach out to them, and there should be some kind of a process of developing a dialogue. And I also feel teachers should also publish research papers, take up research projects, and teaching learning should not just be teaching learning, but it should be research pursuit. Publication of the document should be done, and the schools which are in a particular area, conferences should be kept, but the result oriented conferences should be kept, and 5 best practices of the year should be announced. Teachers should be felicitated. They should also be, encouraged for such activities, and students should also be involved in this process of focusing on teaching learning from a perspective of young learners. I think this will play a very important role. And last important point, to inspire more people to become teachers in the years to come, and to make a more meaningful teacher, we also need respect which is given to the teacher should also be with that, and teachers also should earn that respect to activities which they think are the best ones. So evaluation, exploration, introspection should happen, because India is waiting for such teachers, and I think we have that capacity, and this will be a very good gift to the nation in which we are, and to the world also. So I would like to conclude by saying Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Paschantu, Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhaveet. Om Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. I think without any this was most inspiring, and also I think the consensus in the chat box also says that most of them have benefited immensely from this session. So I would like to thank you on behalf of SVYM, on behalf of VLead, on behalf of all of us, and behalf of all the teachers and all the participants who've logged in today. And even on a personal note, my own exposure to Swami Vivekananda was also based on that one. Every soul is potentially divine. That was the first line I myself read of Vivekananda. So thank you very much once again. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank all the participants who've consistently come for each program. Thank you. And we will continue to bring our lectures, and I think the next week we'll be in conversation with Mr. Vijay Nair, co-founder, Raising a Mathematician Foundation, and where we will talk about working with gifted children, the thrills and challenges, and and like I said, we would be continuing to bring many such programs in addition to the Guru Manthan lectures, and therefore you could always write into Praveen. The phone number and the email ID is available, or to me, the email ID and the phone number on the screen. And we look forward to bringing you more such sessions. We look forward to engaging with you again the coming weeks as well at Guru Manthan. So thank you very much, and
Thank you to everybody for all your efforts, and gratitude to the entire team for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.